Everyone in my world gets harassed. One scene where there are about 10 of us in a love scene together, out in the open on hills. All of us are naked. I asked him to slap me really hard. Sex as a very integral part. Group love scenes, as they like to call it, but orgy is what some other people call it.
The director of Kani Joy Ghosh, you worked with him.
He's terrifying. Oh my god, he's horrible.
How did Hollywood happen?
I'm supposed to be taking off my clothes and seducing this boy in the middle of the night, and I was like, what is this like? And so he gave me the hardest whack.
Hitflik.
So we have with us Tina Desai. She's an actor जिसका एक बहुत यूनिक USP है. इन्होंने ना सिर्फ हिंदी फिल्मों में काम किया है पर हॉलीवुड को भी ब्रेक किया है, वहाँ पर भी जाके काम किया है. इट्स अ वेरी टफ टास्क एंड सुनने में बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि यार हमने हिंदी फिल्में भी किया पर हॉलीवुड भी. बट आई थिंक इट्स अ डिफरेंट बीस्ट, इट्स अ डिफरेंट वर्ल्ड and the struggle there, and I'm using the extreme word called struggle, is entirely different than what you do in Hindi films. So hats off for doing films like Bob Biswas or even Cameo in Cocktail or Table Number 21 or Wachowski brother की Sense8. ये वो डायरेक्टर्स हैं जिन्होंने मैट्रिक्स जैसी फिल्में दी हैं, उनके साथ काम करना, उनकी प्रोडक्शन में काम करना. So that's a big thing. So welcome Tina, welcome to the podcast, and let's start with how did the journey start in India, or what was your first, how did you step into this world?
What a fun introduction. Thank you so much. I felt really happy to hear that. How did I enter the industry? I went for a modeling contest called Get Gorgeous. It was a reality show as well. And I hated the reality bit of it. It's horrible. It's like because they need drama, they need the entertainment, they keep prodding you, they keep poking you with, this person said this about you, what do you think? And that person didn't like your outfit, what do you think? You're getting 4 hours of sleep. There's intense competition. Everyone changes once the camera comes on, and it's really wild. It's really hard to deal with that. So that part I hated. The actual contest where you got to interact with the judges, where you got to learn how to walk, how to do makeup, how to pose for a campaign, things like that. That was awesome. That was really quite a lot of a learning experience because of how much the panelists were able to teach you. I didn't end up winning the contest, but they offered me the winning contract with the model agency Elite anyway. So I was like, I was so confused. I was like, have I lost? Have I won? I came and got what I wanted in the end. So it all worked out well. And most important was it helped me move from Bangalore to Bombay, because I'm from Bangalore, and moving to Bombay without having any contacts is quite crazy, because who do you contact? How do you go about it the right way? How do you do it quickly and effectively? Elite enabled that. So I came in, and that's when my proper journey began.
So what did they teach you which you still learn?
Makeup was very important because I was fresh out of college. I wouldn't even put lipstick in college. I think lip gloss was it for me. So to learn anything about base and, how do you go for auditions and meetings without that, so that was important. How to walk the ramp, how to work a camera, how to face lighting, how to get your marks right, things like that, how to bring the message of a campaign out in a photograph, all in a span of 10 days. So it was like information rich, how to behave as a model, etiquette, professionalism, things like that. All of these little behind the scenes things that make your working experience for others more enjoyable. That I found valuable.
So you said all in 10 days. So I guess how to become a model in 10 days, I
Yeah.
think you got a crash course in that.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely.
And how did the diction, the perfect English diction, how did that come by?
Oh, thank you. That's just Bangalore. That's just my school. We didn't speak well. Our teachers would just... I think it's just always been the case. The focus has always been on speaking good English and less other languages, which is why I struggle with the other ones. But that's cool, yeah.
So Elite happened, and then how did From Elite Films happen?
So they started sending me for auditions, and because I've never been to an acting school, I had only ever practiced acting in front of a mirror. So I was convinced I was a very good actor, but I didn't know if the rest of the world would agree. So when I came here, I started auditioning for TV serials, because those used to have longer lines and major scenes. Like ads are like 4-5 lines, right? TV serials would have pages. So I was like, I'm going to use this as acting school and see the response that I get and see how many callbacks I get, see how much frustration the casting director shows and so on. So I started doing that, but touch wood, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but I started getting booked for jobs. They started selecting me. And then I'd be like, no, I don't actually want to work in TV serials. I was just using that as an experience. So that didn't work out for too long, because then they were like, you can't do that. You can't audition and then say you don't want to do the job. So that stopped. But I mean, they started sending me for movie auditions when they saw that I was picking up ad work. And I have a habit of saying no more than yes. But eventually I did pick up like an art film, because I really liked the character in that. I thought it would be my Raja Ki Aayegi Barat, of Rani Mukherjee, where it's not a commercial film, where it's not anything out there being the Bollywood actress, but character-rich project. And so I was like, I'm willing to take that risk, because there was something substantial for me to do, something that I would actually find challenging. So I did it, but unfortunately along the process of making the film, it went completely haywire, where they started bringing in commercial angles, wanted to bring in a romantic angle, wanted to bring in songs, so it just went off during the making. And so what was on paper was not what came out. But I still learned a lot, and I still think that was my most challenging role.
But how much burden does an actor carry? Because you can't control too many things. You can't control the script, the outcome. Yeah. But there is always a regret कि यार ये फिल्म में मैं ये करती या ये होता तो शायद ये फिल्म हिट होती. But what does it become a burden for an actor as well? You believe that यार ये फिल्म मेरी वजह से शायद थोड़ा खराब हो गई, या प्रोड्यूसर अच्छा होता तो बेटर होता. But that darkness.
It's wild. It's very hard to predict these things. You will know this. When you start a project, everyone's got their hopes up high. Everyone's got their best intentions. But along the process of making it, there are so many things going wrong. There are challenges like, the light is going. Something went wrong with the set. The cops have come because you're shooting in a location that you thought you could get away with without permissions. The actor's in a bad mood. The actor and director are having an ego clash. The budget has suddenly gone above budget along the way, and so they're having to now scrimp on it, and the last few days go crazy because of that. There are so many things that can go wrong along the duration of the filming. They can just run out of funds midway, and then to pick it up again is really hard, and then their looks have changed. So I mean, there are so many variables that the fact that a film gets made itself, to me, is now, I mean, with these years of experience, I think that itself is a major achievement. If it also comes out well, that's just like, party time, just celebrate it, and, you don't know when it's going to happen again. So yeah, I've gone from, why do people make stupid movies, to at least they made a movie. Personally, I feel like my second film, Sharafat Gayi Tel Lene, that was a movie which had a character that I would love to have, which I could have added a lot more to. The thing is, it was my second film, and I was trying to toe the line between a character who was the lead, who had to be charming and endearing and, the typical lead girl, and a nag, just an irritating nag. And if I had chosen to go with the nag, it would have been a lot more funnier. But I toed the line. I was half this, half that, and so it came out messy. I wish that I had the understanding then to know that it would have worked this way as well.
So what works better? Looking good and looking glamorous on screen, or looking the part, the character? What is your...
It's evolved, right? So when we started off, it was entirely about how you looked. Very little about the other things. If it was the other things, great. But essentially how you looked. Now, so many performances are makeup free or as realistic as possible, as natural as possible. So the audiences have evolved, filmmakers have evolved, tastes have evolved. So now we all pride ourselves in the fact that there's no makeup. For example, Mumbai Diaries, I went completely without makeup, and I enjoyed that because the lighting did the trick. Everyone's realization is that lighting can make such a difference. You don't even need makeup to look good. So that's where a lot of us are at right now.
And from Mumbai Diaries or Bob Biswas or from other films, how did Hollywood happen?
Seher Latif, very wonderful casting director who is unfortunately no more. She passed away a couple of years ago. She used to be someone who I met when I was auditioning for ads, and she started casting for international projects entirely. So she called me for the Best Exotic, and I didn't know anything about the project. So that was a lot of fun, actually, because she sent me a script of a scene where I'm supposed to be taking off my clothes and seducing this boy in the middle of the night. And I was like, what is this, like, raunchy stuff she's sending me. She's Seher. Like, doesn't she have a better reputation than this? But it was English, and I was very surprised by that. So I was like, maybe it's some indie film that, will never get released or whatever. But there was comedy in it. So as usual, because my mindset is do auditions, it's good practice, I did the audition, and then I got a call back. And this time I met with the director, and I didn't know anything about him. John Madden is actually an Oscar nominee for Shakespeare in Love and other things. And so I didn't know anything about him. Good thing, because otherwise I'd have been starstruck. So I did a second round of auditions for him. He gave me a few extra scenes on the spot. Somehow that turned out well, maybe because I'm comfortable with English. And then I got called in for the third round because the cast is really huge, a bunch of Oscar nominees and knights and sirs and dames and everything, massive cast. And I was a rank newcomer. I hadn't even had one release at the time. And so Fox wanted someone who had some backing, so they weren't entirely convinced. So I went in for a third round, and we did pretty much all the scenes in the film. And then the director really had to convince the producers, and then I finally bagged the job after like some 3 months of auditioning and 3 rounds of it and everything. But then when I found out what the project was, when I saw the bulletin board and all of the actors' pictures on it, I was like, have I come for this project? And she was like, why do you think the pictures are on the wall? And I could not believe my luck, because it was like, you don't even, at least for me, when I entered the industry, I only aimed at Bollywood. I didn't even think of the West. So just suddenly be able to work with them in a script where I have something significant to do and everyone's awesome as, it was just beyond what I ever dreamt of.
So how young was Dev Patel? How known was he at that time?
He'd already done Slumdog, so he was already huge. He wasn't able to walk around on the streets of Udaipur because everyone recognized him and chased him. And that's why that film was such a wonderful experience for me, because you had all of these people who were, they've included, even though it was just his second or third film, everyone had dealt with an immense amount of fame, had immense creative understanding of films, and then to be in their midst and just absorb all of that was wonderful, because all of these people, their lives don't only revolve around films. And that was what was very enlightening for me, because up until then, whoever I met was so consumed by the film world that that's all we ever thought about or ever discussed or anything. And these guys you meet and they'll discuss history and they'll discuss architecture and they'll discuss Beethoven and his, deafness, and I didn't even know he was deaf. And, just their world is so large. They read so much, they travel so much, they experience and understand so much politics and sport, and everything is you almost never discuss movies. And that's when I realized how limited my world was, and it just completely grew and opened up in their company. And I don't even know if that's an answer to your question, but how is it working with all of them? Wonderful, because of how much they opened my world up.
So, did they ask that inevitable question which every Indian film guys ask, Madam, budget nahi hai, thoda kam kar do?
There was a fixed budget for my job, and honestly, I'd have done that for free. That job I'd have done for free.
Yeah, so they overpaid you.
No, I wish. No, we still had an Indian line producer, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from there, and I'll skip to a few parts, and how did Sense8 happen?
Right, so between that, some 2 or 3 films, 3 years passed, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. And in that time, Seher, the same casting director of Marigold, had introduced me to a bunch of casting directors in London and Los Angeles. And I had gone to meet all of them when I went for the release of Marigold. So I'd built a decent relationship with all of them. And they remembered me, like this was the casting person of Warner Brothers. She remembered me because we spoke so much. It was supposed to be a half-hour meeting. We ended up chatting for an hour and a half about everything other than films. So they remember that, and they sent me this script because they cast for all of the Wachowski projects. They sent me the script directly to test for. And then there was a casting change and everything, so whatever. But I still tested for it, and they liked the audition, but they wanted me to fly to London to do the second round. But I was shooting for Marigold 2 that time. So I couldn't go, and I was terrified that I was going to lose the job because, if you can't do an in-person audition, there's very low chances that you'll get cast just on a videotape, So I was terrified, but then, luckily they did a Zoom meeting with me, not Zoom, Skype meeting with me. Then I did a Skype with the casting director. They wanted to know what I felt about LGBT people, what I felt about religion, what I felt about sex, what I felt about all of the topics that were integral to the idea of Sense8.
Sounds like a Char Bangla ka producer.
No. Oh shit, they'll kill themselves if they hear that. So they wanted a complete understanding of what my personality is. And then I finally bagged the job when they came to India to cast for the other characters.
But why is it important for them to know your preference on LGBT and things like that?
Because they've had unpleasant experiences with other people who don't have a favorable attitude towards that community. And because so many of the topics, so many of the themes of Sense8 are specifically about this. So they wanted someone who would be understanding, who would be willing to learn, who was willing to evolve, who had a large heart, who had empathy, all the concepts that Sense8 deals with. And they wanted me to have a similar mindset for us to all have that mind meld and create together.
So, two things you learned, or maybe one primary thing you learned by doing Hollywood was that it's not just about what you do, your work. You should not just be obsessed about it, but you need to have a break in between as well. Maybe learn Beethoven or things like that, or, open your mind.
Yeah, it's about personality development. It's about you having a very strong character. It's not just about having the emotions. You have to understand the world. You have to understand history. You have to understand other people. You have to have varied interests for you to be picked up for. If you don't have character, what will you bring to the screen? If you're only going to worry about films, then how are you going to have an understanding of other things? How do you have the interest? How do you have your quirks? How do you have those passions that make the quirks of one character more interesting? Also, it makes you more intelligent. It makes you a more interesting person to hang out with. So they like when you're fully evolved, fully developed, when you're curious about everything. That's what I picked up from it. But I loved that the fact that the world is so large. Yeah.
So it's a all-rounded approach.
Absolutely, yeah.
But a lot of actors meet me in Mumbai, and the first thing they ask is, "Okay, theek hai, filmein milengi, theek hai, but how do you get into Hollywood?" And I think 99.99% of the people here want to get into Hollywood. Any advice of what that world is, or do you face or something to be prepared about?
I think it's still the process of auditions. How do you get the auditions? It's very hard. You cannot get references over there until someone from the industry who's senior recommends you to somebody. So you have to get an agent, and only then will you get to meet the casting directors. I was very lucky to have Seher's assistance, but that doesn't always happen. So then you have to audition, and the audition process I'm still trying to crack. It's very difficult. I do think my strike rate is better in the West than in India. I will say that. But it's still very difficult because there's no right or wrong there. For example, if you go for an audition in India, the casting director will pretty much tell you what to do, where to take a pause, what expression they want where, what they have in mind for the character, and you have to be able to deliver exactly that. More often than not, this is how it works here. There are zero instructions. So it's the absolute opposite. You can be funny, you can be dramatic, you can be low-key, you can be high-key, you can do whatever the hell you want. And if they like that, they'll pick you.
So I think that's a surprise because the directors don't give that precise a brief in India as well. So I think it's the casting directors.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So please.
Yeah, no, so I don't know that. I've only seen the casting side because, that's all I've experienced, and they're very, very specific. And there, it's not at all specific. You can do anything, you can, which is why you have to send options of your tapes, of your auditions, because you can do one high-key, one low-key, and something in between and hope it works. And sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Like Dev's mother once said to me, it's most of the time, it's the look that matters. And, I still don't know when the look will work out. But yeah, I mean, so just immense freedom over there, because then it's entirely about your interpretation of the character.
Cool. And do they discuss your audition once they meet you? Or it's the next level, whenever you meet?
Usually if you've met them, that means they liked your audition. They won't tell you what they liked because, the choice that they have, it's clear that they liked everything that you did, and that's why you've got that second round or third round or whatever. And then if there are any pointers, which is usually tone it down, you just take that and you run with it, or whatever other nuances that the director wants you to bring in is all you get. But no, there's no in-depth discussion as such, no.
So
Not as far as I know.
So do you still get fan mails from Sense8?
It's reduced. People have moved on. But the odd message still comes, the odd letter still comes. Instagram is still full of a lot of that love. But I do still get a few direct messages, and it's quite intense. Again, the theme of Sense8 was so personal, so intense for so many people. It was quite revolutionary, if I may say so, for many people, because there are so many people who've sent letters to not just me, to all of the cast members, crew, directors, writers, everyone, who've said that they did not have the confidence to be themselves until the show empowered them. And so then they've come out to be whoever they are. They have the confidence, the courage to tell their parents who they are, to tell their friends who they are, to come out to the media about who they are, and so on. And I found that quite huge, just to watch something that we normally consider entertainment as something that empowers you to be who you are, to give you the confidence. There are some people who thought they were suicidal until they watched the show and they realized that it's okay to be who they are, and that the world is ever evolving, and that it's just a matter of time that other people accept them as they are. So these are large things, very important things that you get. You don't usually, it's like, I liked your character, I laughed a lot, and as a family we had a good outing in the evening or whatever. But for someone to say I stopped feeling suicidal, or I was able to accept my identity because of the show, is very, very huge, very impactful. And I was like, wow, it's nice to see how shows can have that impact on people, yeah.
So from Hollywood to bigger things or different things.
Yes.
How did Table Number 21 happen?
Again, no, this wasn't an audition actually. They watched Marigold 1.
Okay.
They were interested enough. It had
Because
just released.
two films were similar?
No, I think they just wanted a new girl.
Okay.
And I had only had that art house release before that, the first film that I'd done, which nobody saw. So I was pretty much brand new in India. And so when they saw Marigold, they were like, Hollywood, good angle. She's done a decent job. It's not too horrible. She won't botch our project up. And so that's how I got Table. Also, my agency really pushed for me.
And rumors are that you went bald for the film. Is that true?
Prosthetics. I
Okay.
did do prosthetics. It was a wild experience because they took 4 hours every day to put on the prosthetic head, and then 2 hours to take it off. So 6 hours went just in that. And then in between we had to cram in the hair, makeup and shoot. So it was a lot. But I think the effect was quite good. It was quite early. Nobody had done a bald head at that time. And so they were very happy that I wasn't hesitant to do it, because when they offered it to me, they thought I'd be like, no, I won't go bald. I don't do those things. But I was like, yeah, sure, let's do it, so long as I don't have to shave my own head. And they were like, duh, no, because, you have the rest of the film to shoot. It'll be a bald patch. And I was like, yeah, sure, fine, it'll be fun. So they were happy about that. And but I did have a bit of an experience, because you're not supposed to have that surgical glue on for more than some 4 or 6 hours or something like that. And we were shooting some 12 hours. So by the end of the second day, I started blistering wherever the glue was that pasted the skull cap to my head. And so then we had to glue it on other portions, and then that was blistering by the end of the third day. And then I was like, I'm not doing this again. It's my face. Are you crazy? I can't have blisters all over my face. So then they had to shoot only my back so that, we could avoid the skull cap in front. So we had those challenges. But that's what happens with prosthetics.
I guess it has improved now, I guess.
I don't know. I have not done it again.
A lot of female now.
I did hear Ryan Reynolds also went through hours of makeup, but I think they probably shoot shorter durations. He takes 6 hours or something to do his.
Okay.
I don't know though. I'm sure it's gotten better though.
So is it that Sense8, Table Number 21, you only choose movies which have numbers?
That's a good question. Yeah, I should do more. It's funny though, when people meet me for table, they'll be like, we watched table 27, we watched table 14, we watched 29, like any number, some number.
Yeah, even Sense8, Sense6, Sense7.
Yeah.
That happens. And even the exotic.
Sensational.
Even the Exotic Hotel.
Yes, that's a long,
people don't remember the
confusing
name,
name.
including myself. So the sequel of that film, how do you
Second best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
The second best Exotic Marigold Hotel. So how that has performed and done much better than the earlier one. So what was the experience like?
No, actually, the first one did better than the second because it was more novel, a concept, and it was more surprising to everyone. The first one actually made it to the news, the tabloids and the newspapers over there, because they were like, we don't treat our seniors well. I didn't know that either, because in India we all live in joint families. We all treat our elders really respectfully. There apparently not, they're like, the older people go away, you're a burden on us. It made the news there about how difficult it is for people who are older and how they have to fend for themselves and how as a society they need to introspect. So I was like, ooh, another project that's made it to the news and made people talk. The first one did better than the second, but the second was better for me because the entire film was based on the wedding between Sunny and Sunaina, which is Dev and myself. So we were very central to the plot. Everything was happening around the engagement and Sangeet and wedding and the honeymoon farewell and everything. So I felt very happy to be given a bigger role, which meant that the director, writers, the studio had more confidence, and I was like, wee! and I got to like spend more time with everyone and therefore learn more.
Cool. So coming from there to Bob Biswas,
Yeah.
a film which was much more in news than anything else because of the fact that Kahani had worked.
Yeah.
And the same character, there was a film being made, but it's not the same actor. It's Abhisekh Bachchan this
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And from my perspective, do you look like a cop? You don't look like a cop? That would be a question at that time.
Yeah.
So you played a cop in that film.
Yeah.
So what was the experience?
My first question was, is she going to be a plainclothes cop or a uniformed cop? Because I had already played a uniformed cop and I hated myself in it. It looked like I was in a Halloween costume.
When you faced your camera for the first time,
Yeah.
how was it and what was going on in your mind?
I think it's this thing of when you're really young, you have this immense belief, self-belief, and tremendous confidence that things will just work out, just somehow. And because I've wanted to be an actor from my 7th standard, and I looked like I don't know what, like something the cat dragged in. I hadn't been to acting school, nothing, and I still hoped to be an actor in Bollywood. And I was like, how in God's name is that going to happen? And I didn't have the answer. I was like, some miracle is going to happen. The makeup artist is going to sort me out. The stylist is going to sort me out. The cinematographer is going to manage how I look. And then the acting bit is all I can figure out. And so I spent a lot of years in front of the mirror practicing. So the first time I faced the camera was just that same hope that somehow it will work out and everyone will do their job and I will come out looking fine. So you just have mindless hope and self-belief.
But do you get conscious of people? इधर से कोई चीख रहा है, उधर से कोई बोल रहा है, कोई हंस रहा है.
No, because I had read enough interviews of actors by then and all of them said that you have to zone that out. You have to be in your mind, you have to know what you're doing and just perform because nobody's interested in excuses. So you do your thing and everyone else will do theirs. So I just went, I was like, I've spent years in front of the mirror practicing. Now I just got to do it with these people and pretend they're not there and, and hope for the best. Really, you're just hoping for the best. And then over time, you'll figure it out.
I wanted to ask this one question. You did a cameo in Cocktail.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And people still remember you from that. It was just maybe a few seconds role, if I'm
It
not
was a
wrong.
one-scene cameo to set up Saif's character as being a Romeo, a flirt. And so I was in London already doing a reshoot for Marigold, so it was very convenient because they didn't have to fly anyone, they didn't have to worry about the visa. I was already there. I was being recommended by 3 people, their local London casting director who I happen to know. And I happened to stay in his house as well towards the end of that trip. Seher Latif, who's the casting director of Marigold, who also knew Homie and I think said something. And then the ADs of Marigold 1 were also the ADs of Cocktails. So from 3 different directions I was being recommended. So he met with me and the meeting went well and I ended up doing that one scene. It was fun. It was freaking cold because we were shooting at the Serpentine Cafe. Winds are crazy in London, as you know. More than the cold, it's the wind that eats you up. And I'm wearing these itsy bitsy clothes and I was like, I don't want to be here. And then I had to be all flirty in the middle of all of that. But it was still nice to be in that film because it was lighthearted.
So coming back to this, so what's one of the audition experience or casting experience which you've got, which is very interesting?
So there's this extremely senior casting director and he was auditioning for a project, I don't even know if that project got made, where I was supposed to be a hostage and the abductor has come in to terrorize me. And so that sort of fear, and this was again very early in my career, still learning how to fully emote these complicated feelings, And so when you enter an audition room and you immediately go to like 0 to 100, it's quite hard, especially when you have such a good casting director in front of you and you want to impress him. So I didn't know how to bring that intensity into me immediately. So I asked him to slap me. really hard, because with that comes a shiver, tears, insane adrenaline in your body, and anger. And then, you just take that, everything that you're naturally feeling, run with it, and it should translate, was my hope. So I told him this, and he thought I was just bonkers and beyond. And he was like, I will go to jail for this. And I was like, no, honestly, this will be between everyone in the room, and that's it. But I'm never going to be able to fully give you what I know I can do until this happens. I need some trigger. What is that trigger within this safe space? And so he gave me the hardest whack, and then I gave him my fanciest audition, and ever since he's been a huge patronizer and always calls me for good projects.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you ever need people to slap you, I think we can send a request on the podcast. I think there'll be a lot of people.
I don't advise it. I now am in a position where I can muster in that, but that had to be done really quickly. And like I said, I was at the start of my career, so I didn't know how to bring that intensity that quickly.
So I guess everybody has a process, but in my experience, most of the time, actors give actors the wrong advice. Do you ever face that?
I suppose because nobody really knows, right?
Yeah.
If you actually speak to everyone who's been around long enough and you ask them what's the best advice you can give me, everyone will be like, do whatever pleases you, because nobody knows what works.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what's going to be a success, what's going to be appreciated. There are now projects where the actors appreciate it in spite of the film being trash, and so on. So everyone's trying to figure it out. Everyone's making a project because they believe in it. After it's made, everyone looks back and they're like, how did a bunch of people greenlight this? But obviously at that time they believed in it. So nobody knows. So you have to believe in it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's a learning experience, move on. I think that's the only... And so if there's advice that goes wrong, it's only because nobody knows. Everyone's figuring it out together.
So you believe that every actor has his or her own process?
Process, journey, yeah.
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 So
I mean, what works for X does not work for Y and does not work for Z, and even if they try to replicate it, they have to be in similar circumstances. It's impossible to replicate.
So there's just one thing which every actor generally goes through. यार मुझे typecast हो जाऊंगी मैं ऐसा करने से.
Yeah.
You believe that?
Yes.
That's the biggest fear every actor has.
Yeah. I don't think I've had that yet. But that used to be a fear, because when I joined films, the girl was usually the bubbly, charming one who had to make the boy fall in love with her. Because there was mostly love stories that were being made, romantic films that were being made. So you had to be 10 different versions of bubbly. And I was terrified. I was like, I don't know how to be bubbly in 10 different ways, for 10 different films. I don't know. I know bubbly maybe in 2 ways. And then what am I going to do? My career is going to be a mess. Luckily now characters and scripts have evolved enough where you don't only have to be bubbly. The girl can be a rotten person as well, which is amazing. Typecasting has not been a problem for me yet, but that's because things have changed.
Does it also not help if you're too pretty for the role or something like that?
I still have not had that problem. I don't know what bracket I fall in, so I can't answer that question.
So, coming to your film Bob Biswas, where you're playing a cop, and
Yes.
I can't imagine you playing a cop and with this kind of a hairstyle and whatever. And obviously, I'm being a little more stupid in asking this question. But how did Bob Biswas happen?
So Sujoy and I had done a short film before that. Again, I had done that short film just so that I could acquaint myself to him and hopefully impress him, which luckily happened. It was a really fun character, in fact, that short film, because I turn out to be Kida in the end. I'm the bad guy in the end, which was really fun. I love characters that are twisted and dark and antithetical.
You like to be natural.
Yes, that's a big yes.
Yeah.
So I got that character and I was very happy to do it. And then he was impressed enough to offer me Bob. But even I was terrified. I was like, cop, really? And Abhisekh is huge, wide and huge. And I'm like, I will be this little mouse in front of him saying, you are under arrest. He'd probably break into laughter. So I was like, how are we going to do this? Which is why I chose to keep the character lighthearted, not serious, not intense, not harsh, not anything on that side. I tried to keep her light-hearted and humorous. And also they said I would not be in costume, which is very important because I have played a cop in costume and I look like an actor in a Halloween costume, so that doesn't work. I'm too slim for it. So they just gave me like a semi-formal, formal vibe, and at every point I'm only humoring him. I'm not ever interrogating him, and so that angle kind of worked, and I was like, all right, so long as you're giving her that light-hearted side, I think I can do it. And I don't know, it went okay. I didn't get criticized, so I think it went okay.
So the director of Kahani, Sujay Ghosh, you worked with him in a short film in Bob Biswas. What was it working with him?
He's terrifying. Oh my god, he's horrible, because most directors sit at the monitor. He will stand right beside the camera and watch you. He will watch you. He won't look at the camera. He'll watch you. So it's very disturbing, because it's like he reacts with you. And so you're like, is he going to say something? Is he going to throw something at me? Is he happy? Because he's quite expressive while he's watching you. So it's very distracting. And I'm like, stop it. Because I always expect the worst. So I'm always like, he's going to kick me out of set now. But then he'll be like, oh, that went well. And I'm like, gee, man, all of that stress for nothing. So there's that. But he's got some really interesting direction that he gives you, the things where he wants you to like up the ante sometimes. He wants you to work the other character sometimes. He likes the mind game. Both of the projects that I did with him had a lot of that, give and take, where we're playing mind games, seeing who's going to buckle first. So when that sort of dynamic is going on, he likes to up it a little bit, and that one-upmanship he likes to play with. So it's really nice to take that perspective in, which is obviously fresh and different from yours.
So when a director like that comes in your life, and does your processing time of your thoughts, of your acting, do they work faster than normal, or you can take your time?
I do as much prep as possible before I go onto set, with as many possibilities and perspectives before I go onto set, because I do feel I'm a bit slow. I do feel like I like the time to think about it, especially because I audition a lot. I'll audition and 3 days later I'll be like, oh, I should have done this. And then 3 months later I'll be like, oh, I should have done this. And it still goes on. There are ads that I did at the start of my career that I still feel I could have done something different with. So I'm very slow. I overthink. So I try and prep as much as possible, try and take as many perspectives, angles, tonalities to the character as much as possible before I go onto set, so that when that direction comes in, I have some germ of an idea already in my head, and I just have to like flesh that out some more.
Cool. And do you ask a lot of questions from directors?
No.
No?
Nothing at all.
You make your own
In
stories?
fact, you know what happens, Saurabh? I'll do my prep and I go. More often than not, I do not get direction.
Okay. So you'll create.
So it's the opposite. So when I do get direction, I'm like, what did I do wrong? How come I'm getting direction? Really, because 95% of the time I don't get direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you build your own world, your own background of the character, or the script, whatever it gives you, you interpret it the way it is.
Yeah, pretty much what the script gives you. If there's something necessary, then I do have to build that world because to me it doesn't feel just otherwise. Like, why is there such a strong reaction? I don't see anything in the script that would justify this much angst. And so then I build up a backstory, and then most often that flops, because by the time you do the next season or the sequel or whatever, that backstory that I would have built would have made no sense, because the director would have then fleshed that out and given it another meaning in that, and I'm like, So, but yeah, I mean, for the sake of that particular scene, I sometimes do. But there's enough usually information within the script.
There was also a lesser known talent in Bob Biswas called Abhisekh Bachchan. So,
yeah, who's that guy?
Yeah, I kind of heard about him. So what was it working like with Abhisekh Bachchan?
I didn't have those many scenes with him. I think I had some 3 with him. And I think we ended up joking about other things more than the actual scene. Once it was right in the middle of COVID, so I was asking him about how he dealt with his illness. Second scene, we were making fun of a lot of his peers and how they started acting, and all the stupid things that they used to do in acting school. So pretty much nothing based on the project. But yeah, he's easygoing, he's fun. The first day he was a little bit, I want to have lunch, I want to get out of here. And so I was like, this is an interesting first day. But I had my performance that day was one where I'm judging the crap out of him and not liking him very much. So the fact that he wanted to go for lunch and stop shoot helped me just perform better. But otherwise, he's very easy. He's I pretty much ask him to entertain me all the time with this. Now, tell me some stories. Tell me some more stories. And he very sweetly obliges.
Cool. So, Mumbai Diaries, your
Yeah.
web series, and where is it streaming?
Amazon Prime.
So it's being streamed on Amazon Prime. It's based on true characters. It's based on. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, she is based on a true character. But then when I actually started doing the prep, trying to get her voice, Nikhil was like, no, you do your own thing. So I was like, okay, halfway through we've changed. I have a friend who works in hospitality, so I spoke to him about how it is to deal with a bunch of guests, because you're in a high intensity situation, and there's a lot of stress, lots of pressure, but you have to maintain your cool. I also read a book about the attacks and what happened with the Taj employees, and what really stood out is that they're all people who have been hired from tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where their innate nature while growing up, while being raised by their respective families, is Atiti Devo Bhava. So they truly believe that the guest has to be given precedence over yourself. So when they're hired by these hotels, they naturally put the guest before themselves, which is not something that can be taught. And so when they were in this situation, all of them chose to stay back at the hotel and look after the guests, even though they could have been rescued, right? So that's quite a mad decision if you put yourself in that position. At least it seemed that way to me. So one was to keep that attitude, this motherly attitude towards guests who are pretty much older than you, because the actual banquet manager was 24 and all of the people in that room were above 50. So if you're going to be mothering a bunch of people who are twice your age, it says a lot about your personality. I had a friend who works in hospitality who dealt with a fire situation when he was in that hotel, and he had to convince the guest to leave his room when there was a fire, because he was like, no, I don't want to leave. I have valuable stuff. He was from the Middle East. He was like, I have valuable stuff, plus my wife is sleeping. I don't want to get out. You deal with the situation. So they still had to convince him that there's a fire, that there's something quite serious, life-threatening, and you have to go.
Was
it
it actually
patient.
the wife?
Huh?
Is it my wife is sleeping? Was it actually the wife or somebody else?
Right. That's funny. Yeah, so I mean, no matter how crazy the situation is, you're in hospitality, you still have to have it together, you still have to be patient with the guests. And that was a lot of what I had to do with my characters. So, I got all of that from my friend, from real life examples. Season 2, I had to be pregnant. That was crazy because, I hate kids. I couldn't care less if they, anyway, I can't say that. So I had to practice how to walk with the belly, how to sit, stand, cry, hormonal changes, that mood swings that happen in women when they're pregnant and so on, which was quite funny because I couldn't care less about any of these things, and then I had to really care this time. But after doing all of this, when you actually go and see real mothers, the first thing they will tell you is, please don't walk like a pregnant person, because we're walking normally. And so when I did that on set, they were like, you're walking normally? And I'm like, 1 second. I've had a bunch of pregnant women say walk normally. So there was that tussle, whether I should dramatize it or not. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun doing all of these things, because season 1 was more emotional, where you're dealing with this thing of, you're not just responsible for your life, but a bunch of people in that room. Season 2 felt more like a day in an amusement park, because it's about the floods, and you're drowning in the car, and you have to try and stay on the seat, even though you have a belly that make you float when there's water. So you have to put weights and stay down on the seat. You're floating in a pond that's been built by the production. You're being ferried around on a boat, all sorts of fun things, which you do in a theme park. So that was more like a joyride for me, where I'm just like, oh, it's raining today, it's falling on me, and I'm having fun, So it was like that. But the first one was a lot more emotional.
So Nikhil Advani,
yeah,
what was it working like with him?
Nikhil is my favorite. He has such an eye for detail. Like in a scene where you have about 100 extras who have to jump onto a car from various directions, break the roof, break the window, bring the girl out. There's kachara from the flooded streets. There's an ambulance, there's a bus, there's a thela wala, there's a, it's a live set. In that, he will notice if a Bisleri bottle is there in a corner which is not matching the color theme of the scene, or if someone's opened their umbrella out late, or whatever. So I'm like, there are 500 things happening. How do you notice these little things? So to me, that felt like a lot. I don't know, you're a director, you might be like, yeah, sure, what's the big deal? But to me, that felt like quite crazy that he can pay attention to so many minute details. And also, I like the fact that he creates a vibe on set that matches the scene you're having to perform. So like there's this one scene where I come into the banquet hall and I'm having a panic attack because I've just watched the first death happen in front of me, and I have to palpitate, I have to have a tingling body, I have to be crying, and it's very intense, and I had only one take. He created so much tension and chaos on set that I could just absorb that energy and use it in my performance. So he provides an environment that makes it really easy for you to do it, and the Steadicam just follows you everywhere through the scene, so you never have to break it up. That means you never have to recreate the emotion, bring that intensity midway, and then just do it. He'll do it start to end, so you're feeling the scene right through. There's a flow to it. You do it all out. You go all high intensity, and then cut, and you're done. So that's very beneficial, because then you don't have to bring back that energy. You don't have to worry about crying or being angry or whatever for about 5 hours. You don't have to do that. You do it once and you're done, because there are like some 3 cameras covering you. So that's a really good system that he had going for all of us. And we had long scenes going through different rooms and so on and so forth, but he choreographed them enough to be able to just give it 1, maybe 2 goes.
So you work with a lot of directors, Hollywood, Indian, Wachowski sisters, Sujoy Ghosh, Nikhil Advani. How important is it for a director to understand an actor, and vice versa? The combination.
The actor should definitely understand the director, because sometimes if you don't understand the direction, what will you do? If you don't understand his aesthetic, his vision, then you're screwing up. So it's very important that the actor understand the director. I feel like if there's reasonable communication, it should be fine. Whatever questions, luckily, directors are okay to answer questions. So whatever you don't get from the script, you can ask. And I always start off with a disclaimer, with this: please forgive me if they're stupid questions, but please bear with me. These are what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. Whatever insight you can provide will be great. So I'm already, bringing it into a space where they're more receptive, and then I can say whatever I want. But luckily, it's always been very respectful. I don't think it can work in a situation where the director and actor don't respect each other. And when there's respect, everything else can work out, because both are working for the good of the project. So. So far, I've not had that experience where there's a clash, except for my first project, and that's why that went for a toss.
So, but can you judge a film whether it's going to work or not based on your first few days' experience?
This is difficult. I will tell you this. You can judge enough from the script. When the script has something, this can't go wrong, then you do it. If you think it doesn't have anything and you hope that it'll come alive on set, that's when things can go wrong, in my understanding. So I think the script is the better judge than the set. And then the set will only be something within what the script already has, is what I feel.
Cool. So we
it's okay,
lost...
it's not film, it's digital. You can take your time.
No, so one of the fan who mailed us has just asked a question that what are the tips you can give to newcomers who want to get into this industry? And today, the world has become smaller because your phone is your camera and you don't need to struggle too much. You can just have a decent ring light in your house and you can start working on that. So what are the tips from your side?
Here's what I'll say. Cracking the industry is one thing. There are casting directors now, and like you said, there's social media. You can put yourself out there. All of that's fine. You'll crack your first job. To me, I feel like sustaining yourself in the industry is a far bigger challenge than breaking into the industry. So I would tell every newcomer to prepare yourself for the long haul, because consistency and sustainability is very tough. To remain relevant, to remain interesting, to deal with dry patches, to deal with the changing phases of cinema, and to be able to adapt to that, that's a lot more difficult than just getting your first project. So I would say work on your personality, work on your hobbies, develop interests all around, have a full life. Don't make your life entirely about your career. You have to have other things going on with you to enjoy life, to be a more interesting person, and to be able to sustain yourself long periods of time, so that when there is a dry patch, there's something else that you can do, that you can evolve into a different person, so that you can approach different types of characters. So focus on the long game, not just breaking in.
How difficult is it to say no to a bad script?
Oh, I do it all the time, but here's the repercussion. You can hurt egos. If you say no to projects, they take that personally, and then they don't call you again. So probably find a way to navigate that. But if you don't believe in it, don't do it, because then when it does badly or something wrong happens in that project, you will hate yourself, you will regret it a lot. So better to say no and have someone who believes in the project, who thinks it's a gift or a blessing to do the project, to go ahead and do it, because you will just be unhappy every day doing it. So if you don't believe in the script, don't do it. And tactfully find a way of saying no.
So when you take a decision of doing a film or not doing a film, do
Yeah.
you have your bunch of advisors or friends or somebody you...
Everyone in my world gets harassed when I have a project. Usually when I say no, which again I'll say is more often than yes, I will reach out to everybody with this is irritating me, I don't like this is a problem, this, I've been offered this, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think, what do you think? I will harass everyone for as much time as possible until I have to give my final answer, because something about it is not working for me, and I'm just trying to find something that strikes a chord with me when I speak to all these people to maybe get that yes. But usually, even if they give me that, because I feel no, I will still say no. So yeah, I do have a bunch of people, but it's just the instinct at the end of the day.
Cool. So, cool. So, if there's a film or a concept or a project where you have to leave away your inhibitions, how difficult is that? Or is it the character?
It is tough. Sense8 had sex as a very integral part of what was shown, and I was asked if I was comfortable with nudity and, group love scenes, as they like to call it, but orgies, what some other people call it. I was not at all comfortable. I'm quite conservative. I'm quite a traditionalist. So for me to go from that world to Sense8, where it's completely the opposite, and it's wild and it's exploring all themes, it's there are no inhibitions, and you're questioning all of the norms that the world follows. When you go from this extreme to that extreme, it's a bit of a shock. Not a bit, it's a lot of a shock. So that was very tough for me to do. It took hours of thinking and counseling with family and friends and people on the set, and everyone trying to be understanding and try to create an atmosphere that I would be comfortable in. By the end of the second season, I was like, I can do anything now. Bring it on. I will do. I've seen so much and experienced so much. It's fine. There was this time when I went to the red light district of Amsterdam, and I was like, oh, I've seen more than this. What is this? No big deal. So I had gone from here to there. But it was very difficult in the beginning, when you have, like, my first scene in San Francisco, where we have, I don't know if you watched the show, but there's this one scene where there are about 10 of us in a love scene together that was shot in 3 locations: Amsterdam, San Francisco, and Berlin. And the one in San Francisco was early morning. It was at dawn, so it was really cold. Out in the open on the hills. All of us are naked in the open. And I'm like, what if someone sees? Of course, I always had my modesty clothing, because I never accepted the nudity. It was something I was just never willing to let go of. But everyone else around me was. So for me to be okay, not make them uncomfortable, to be like I'm enjoying all of this, it was very hard. And I went from there to, yeah, I can do anything now. So yeah, it's tough. But what do you do? That's the project. That's the message you're putting out. And so you have to work the mind into understanding the larger message that's trying to be put out there. And if you can go on board, you just make your life easier.
So how do you maintain yourself in terms of health-wise, things like that? I mean, is it not tough with so many? And just a little bit of trivia, Sense8 was shot in 8 countries, and I think one of the trivia says that people traveled so much that they could have traveled all across the globe 4 times. That is the kind of travel the crew did throughout the shoot.
Yeah.
And 8 countries, 9 cities, I think.
And the second season had 17 cities. So it was the biggest blessing of my life so far. Just the best experience to be able to travel and experience all of those cultures, and jumping time zones, jumping temperatures. Like, it was minus 34 degrees that morning when I was in Iceland, and then it was 34 degrees that evening when I came to Bombay. So you're doing a difference of some 70 degrees in one day.
Really?
It's
Is there
wild.
a difference between Mumbai and Iceland? Is there a difference?
So it's wild to experience that in one day. These mad
Yeah.
time zones. You're going to Mexico, and then the next day you're in South Korea. It's really crazy, but it's a privilege. We all enjoyed it to the most.
But how do you stay fit?
I do gym. I've been weight training. I do gym to look heavier, to build muscle. I don't go to cardio because I need to look full. I'm quite thin naturally. I have a high metabolic rate naturally. So I go to the gym to build muscle. I also do yoga for flexibility. But because I have like a million hobbies that change every 2 hours, I also do dancing, or I do like stunt yoga. So the yoga I do is not about the breathing. That's boring for me. I do the stuff that's like Cirque du Soleil acrobats. That between the three of these, I pretty much maintain it. And even then, if I just don't do anything, I still, because I'm blessed with a high metabolic rate, I'm still fine.
So there's one more thing which is extremely important for an actor, to keep their mental health intact.
Yeah.
And everybody, including your neighbors, will always put you down. So how do you manage that? Because in a world where everybody is judging you, maybe not just on screen but off screen, and देखो वो क्या कर रही है, देखो ये कर रही है. How do you keep your mental health okay?
This will be a long answer. My neighbors are very nice. I think the first go-to is your family. My family thrives in situations of stress. So we really come together. When things are happier is when everyone will be like, get out of here. But when things are shit is when everyone is each one's flag bearer. So it's really amazing. My family is really good at keeping my sanity. I don't, touch wood, have a problem with mental health. I think I'm always on the positive side. But I will say this, when things get challenging in terms of you're frustrated about a certain thing that's happening in your life, then you just have to have, at least in my case, it's just this immense amount of self-belief, the same thing that I had at the start of my career, and just the belief in miracles, just it will work out. I don't know how, I don't know when, but it will work out. I just have that flame burning, and I think that's what keeps me going. There are days when I'm in a crap mood, and then I just tell everyone to stay far away from me because I would bring my fangs out and bite. But more often than 90% of the time, I'm just like, it'll work out, I don't know how. But I have other interests. Like I said, I invest in the stock market, I learn languages, I have my doggy, quite a full-time job on his own. I learn how to beatbox, I learn how to shuffle dance, I learn how to juggle, as the day goes by, some new thing I learn to do. So I'm very interested in reading. I'll watch stuff about world wars, why Vietnam happened, why Korea happened, why Gulf War happened, what the differences between communism and social. I'm just constantly reading or doing something to keep my mind busy. And when you have an active mind, there's no time to have, at least I feel that way, to actually crumble. So that's my method.
So one thing we learned from Tina here is that if you are constantly doing your job, like she visited the red light district of Amsterdam, so all these new learnings make you grow as an actor. So I've taken that as a only learning I have in this. Rest we'll but just last one thing that actors today take a lot of advice.
Yeah.
So from a lot of people, and every advice may be a little bit different than from the other.
Yeah.
So what is the process of taking a decision?
When I started off, I used to be a lot more naive, and I used to think that if my character is good and if the story is good, it's enough. Now I've learned that it's very important that the producer be reliable and have a good track record, that the director have a good sensibility and a good demeanor, because if there's someone who yell or have mood swings or just any questionable behavioral traits, then you don't want to collaborate on it, because if you're doing it for an extended period of time, it'll just be unpleasant. So the setup is very important. When you read the script, you know the mentality of the writer, the intelligence of the writer. Then you know what the cast is like. You'll know how interesting it is. So if it's a smaller cast, you know how many people will watch. If it's a bigger cast, you know how many people will watch. So then you see if that's important to you or not. So then I started off with this, my character is all that matters, to now everything matters. You know, the budget matters, whether it's got a platform release, whether that's been confirmed or not, whether it's a theatrical, whether it's going to be made and then sold, whether it's already sold at the writing stage. All of these things matter, because that affects the budget through the project, it affects the team that comes on board, the output, everything.
Cool.
So then I take all of these factors in and then make that decision. And then I end up saying yes to a project once in 2 years.
So जो ये कर रही हैं, please मत करना.
Yeah, please, I'm too fussy.
So all across the globe, one director, creator, you're very much impressed with. Anybody you know?
Aaron Sorkin. I absolutely love him as writer and now director. His writing is just so information heavy, but it's also not taxing. Like, you can be saying 20 different things, but you'll be able to grasp it all as a viewer. And there's absolutely no line in any of his projects that's just there for fun. You know, everything has relevance, meaning there's a point to it. It'll connect somewhere, something. And I just love his writing. It's just so crisp. It's like a template. It cannot be better than that. And then now he's also a director. I wish I can work with him.
So
also Timothy Chalamet, because my God, he looks like Nutella. And Johnny Depp, because, you know, he's just wild and wacky, and I want to know what it's like working with someone as creative as that.
Cool. So Aaron Sorkin is somebody who's not gone by the grammar of writing, and he's not a traditional writer.
Yeah.
So what else do you learn from him as an actor?
I just don't know how he's able to make every scene. He will bring in humor. He will bring in immense drama. He will bring a twist. He just is able to change the tone of a scene. He writes long scenes. It doesn't feel long. The vibe, the tone of the scene changes as it goes along. There are immense reveals that happen. It's just such a dynamic, live. The writing is so fluid
and entertaining.
Yeah. It's just, there's never a moment where you can zone out. And you don't have to, because he's just got your attention all the time.
Cool. So that's a good learning.
So that wasn't a learning. You know that, and you probably will be like, yeah, of course. I've known him always. I love him.
No, I think every work of Aaron Sorkin
Yeah.
is so much of... there's so much to learn that everything you see new, and you can watch it again, and every time you see it, you get a new perspective.
Yeah.
So I think he's one of the guys you can learn a lot with.
It's also great how he can keep the humor even in really intense scenes.
So
That's really cool.
In a different context, have you seen Gunda?
I don't know what that is.
So Gunda
You've
is
mentioned it before.
Mithun Chakravarti film which has got some 10 out of 10 rating in IMDb.
Oh?
And you've
That's
seen
a lot.
Aaron Sorkin, and if you've not seen Gunda, you've not seen both sides of the
Damn it.
globe.
I will go home and watch the first thing tonight.
Yeah. So if you don't know what Gunda is, if you don't know what Bulla is, then you are not an actor.
Terrible. I'm telling you, I'm an imposter in this industry. I don't know anything. Tonight, I will change my ways.
So tonight you learn.
Tonight, I will watch Gunda.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So cool. So that's it, Tina. Any last words?
I had a lot of fun. Thank you for doing this with me. Thank you for wasting your time. I really enjoyed reliving all of these things. I haven't talked about it in a while, so thank you.
So they say podcasts are kind of therapeutic. Is it? Do you feel that you've taken out something from the system, because a lot of people are going to learn from what you're going to say today?
I think the only learning that could be is that your experience will be different. But I just enjoy talking about the experiences, sharing whatever I went through, because to me it was a lot of fun, and I hope other people will feel that too. It was just fun to relive it, really.
Cool. So that's it, and thank you everyone for listening,
Thank you.
and thank you.